We're meeting with Russia. That'll take place tomorrow. They're going to be meeting with President Putin. I had a very good meeting with President Zelenskyy. Everybody wants to have the war end.
U.S. President Donald Trump on his meeting today in Davos with the president of Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelenskyy also spoke positively about the hour-long conversation. Zelenskyy called it, quote, productive and substantive. For more on this, we've reached Arseniy Yatsenyuk in Kyiv. He's a former Prime Minister of Ukraine, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Much a pleasure, Arti.
So let's get right into that meeting that took place between the U.S. President and Volodymyr Zelenskyy. They called it a productive meeting. We know we're looking ahead now to a meeting over the weekend involving the three leaders. And we heard Volodymyr Zelenskyy call this the last mile, that everything is prepared and ready to go, but there's final commitments that are missing. What do you make of this process?
Could I start with Canada? Because, let me mention your PM, your Prime Minister. He deserves the credit. He was really good at Davos, and I share his take, and he even deserved a special remarks from the U.S. President. And my take is the dust will settle. It will definitely settle, but we need to undertake a very courageous, bold, and strong steps in order to make all of us just stronger. And the voice of unity is urgently needed in this crazy world. So I hope that we will survive all the challenges that we are facing. In terms of ongoing talks with Russia, let me bring you a different perspective, and I stick to this kind of message for more than 8 months. I believe that Russia is conducting a sham negotiations. They are not acting in any kind of good faith. The very idea of designated war criminal Putin was to drag its feet and to outplay and to outweigh us. He expected to get something more valuable out of President Trump in Anchorage meeting. Now he believes that he can hold these kind of never-ending talks for another uncertain period of time. My president indicated that it's going to be the last mile. I don't know whether it's the last inch or last mile, but what I know for sure is that Russia and personally Putin, they are not eager to cut any kind of real deal. Putin wants a surrender of Ukraine. He wants to get Ukraine's capitulation. And he, together with China, wants to get the capitulation of the entire Western world. I can hardly imagine that Putin is to accept, for example, the deployment of NATO troops or NATO member state troops on the Ukrainian sovereign soil. I can hardly imagine that Putin is ready to accept any kind of real ironclad security guarantees. I can hardly imagine that Putin actually believes that Ukraine could be a sovereign state and a member of the European Union. So it brings me to my next point, that Putin is not ready really to cut any kind of a peace deal, and we need to be stronger. And we need to exert maximum pressure on Putin, and we need to have everyone on board. I mean, Americans, the European Union, and the entire remnants of the free world that have to survive in these crazy circumstances.
If we take your perspective on this here, and we know that Zelenskyy says the trilateral meeting that is happening over the course of the weekend is a positive step, and says that diplomatic military officials will also be attending that trilateral meeting over the course of the next few days. But if we take your perspective, is all of this for nothing? Is this a futile mission? Is there no sense that any sort of negotiations could be done in good faith when it comes to ending this conflict approaching 4 years now?
Well, let me bring you another different perspective. So from my standpoint, we are moving in the right direction in terms of having everyone on board. So we need to be on the same page with the European Union and the United States. And these are the rules of the game. So my president holds never-ending talks with the US administration and with the Europeans. And both Europeans try to persuade the US administration not to turn its back on Ukraine. And we've succeeded. So we are back to square one in our talks. We are negotiating among ourselves. I mean, between the US, the European Union, and Ukraine. But the thing is that Russia is not eager to negotiate. So maybe there will be some kind of technical talks in Abu Dhabi a day after tomorrow. And the special envoy of President Trump, Mr. Witkovits, to head to Moscow to get Putin's take on these 20 points peace plan that have been elaborated and hammered out by Ukraine and the EU and the United States. Only in case if miracle happens, unbelievable miracle, we can get something out of Putin, I mean, in terms of concessions. But at that particular period of time, at that political juncture, I do not foresee any kind of real concessions on Putin's side.
You know, you mentioned our Prime Minister's remarks in Davos, and we know also that Volodymyr Zelenskyy delivered some fiery remarks as well today, blasting the EU's lack of, quote, political will. He criticized some of the people the leadership suggesting here, and I want to take a look at my notes, suggesting, you know, Maduro is on trial, Putin is still not, criticizing Europe for not using frozen Russian assets, also saying, why can Trump stop tankers and seize oil and Europe can't do the same with Russian oil? So a lot of sort of passion behind these remarks that he's making there in terms of that political will that he was addressing. Does that political will not exist, or is it such a careful, diplomatic, delicate line that is being walked in order to not upset the balance with the U.S. president?
I will not pour the gasoline onto the fire, because the voice of unity and the sense of reason, a common sense of reason, has to prevail. The more fractured we are, the more united autocratic and dictatorship regimes would be. I mean, the strategic partners like Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, they are popping champagne with these type of ruptures that they see and they witness. So my message to everyone is that the only solution is to overcome the discrepancies and contradictions that we have and to find a strength to square the wagons, or to circle the wagons, as you say. Otherwise, the future of the free world, of the Western world, would be in shatters. So my take is that we have enough of tools, leverage, strengths, to win in this war. Because if Ukraine wins, this would be a milestone victory for the free world. If Ukraine fails, this would trigger a domino effect all over the world. So we can prevail in this war. What is needed, as you mentioned, a strong political will. It is true that everyone is facing its own domestic challenges, like you folks face it in Canada, like every single European member state faces it with domestic issues. And we as Ukrainians are facing the most dramatic challenges in our history, with the ongoing war, with the never-ending aerial bombardment of infrastructure, with the humanitarian crisis, with the huge death toll, with a huge drama. But we stand and fight. So help us to win, and we will win together.
Mr. Yatsenyuk, I want to thank you again for your time today and for sharing your thoughts and your perspective on this. Hopefully we'll get a chance to speak after that meeting this weekend, too. That is Arseniy Yatsenyuk. He's the former Prime Minister of Ukraine. We reached him in Kyiv. Thank you.